Imagine a world where tiny silicon chips decide who leads the next industrial revolution. These semiconductors power everything from smartphones and cars to satellites and supercomputers. Yet, most people rarely think about where they come from. In the early years of computing, the United States pioneered semiconductor technology and built huge factories to meet Cold War and consumer demand. By the 1960s, 1 in 3 U.S. manufacturing workers was tied to electronics or automotive production, and the country produced nearly 40% of the world's chips. The Made in America label on televisions and circuit boards was a symbol of innovation and economic strength. Over the next decades, globalization changed the landscape. Rising wages, environmental rules, and shareholder pressure pushed many U.S. companies to move fabrication to East Asia, where governments offered subsidies and labor was cheaper. South Korean chaebols, such as Samsung, built vast wafer plants, while Taiwan created an ecosystem for foundries that produced chips designed by others. This specialization was efficient and profitable, but created a fragile supply chain. By 2024, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC, alone commanded more than 60% of global foundry revenue, while Samsung held about 10%, leaving the bulk of world chip production in the hands of just 2 companies. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed how precarious this system had become. Lockdowns and spikes in demand caused severe chip shortages that cost the automotive industry an estimated $200 billion and left millions of cars unfinished. Laptop and smartphone prices jumped as manufacturers raced to secure components, and some companies even slowed product launches. Meanwhile, geopolitical tensions between China and Taiwan raised fears of an interruption in supply. Taiwan now produces more than 60% of all semiconductors and over 90% of the most advanced chips, meaning a conflict or natural disaster on the island could bring global factories to a halt. Recognizing these risks, governments around the world are racing to rebuild or expand domestic semiconductor capacity. In the United States, the CHIPS and Science Act of 2022 allocates $52 billion in subsidies and tax credits for manufacturers that build or expand chip plants, plus more than $200 billion for scientific research. America's share of global chip manufacturing had fallen from 37% in the early 1990s to about 12% today, but the CHIPS Act aims to raise it to 14% by 2032 and to produce 20% of the world's leading-edge logic chips and at least 10% of sub-10 nanometer chips. Since the Act's passage, companies have pledged over $160 billion in semiconductor investments across more than 80 projects in 25 states, with Intel, Samsung, and TSMC building megafabs in Arizona, Texas, and Ohio. Supporters say reshoring will shorten supply chains, cut shipping costs, and reduce dependence on politically volatile regions. China has its own strategy. Beijing has poured billions into its domestic chip industry to reduce reliance on Western technology and is focusing on mature node chips used in cars, home appliances, and industrial equipment. Its share of global manufacturing has risen from almost nothing to around 15%, and Chinese firms are rapidly increasing output of older generation semiconductors that still account for most global demand. This push worries U.S. policymakers because the CHIPS Act focuses on cutting-edge chips, leaving gaps in the supply of mainstream components that could keep American industries dependent on Chinese production. Meanwhile, China's assertive stance toward Taiwan adds a security dimension to the economic race. Europe is also mobilizing. The continent currently produces just under 10% of the world's semiconductors and has little capacity in the most advanced nodes. To reduce dependence on Asia and the United States, the European CHIPS Act aims to double Europe's global market share to 20% by 2030. It focuses on strengthening research, building fabrication capacity, training talent, and monitoring supply chains. Countries such as Germany, France, and Italy have announced multi-billion euro partnerships with industry leaders like STMicroelectronics, Global Foundries, and a TSMC-led consortium to construct advanced fabs in Dresden and Catania. Europe also relies on companies like ASML, the Dutch maker of extreme ultraviolet lithography machines, whose equipment is indispensable for the most cutting-edge chips. The global race for semiconductors is about more than business. It is about national security and geopolitical influence. Chips underpin advanced military systems, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and emerging industries like electric vehicles. U.S. officials worry that a conflict over Taiwan could shut off access to semiconductors, potentially wiping trillions off global GDP and crippling supply chains. Even without a war, Taiwan's vulnerability to earthquakes, droughts, and power shortages poses a risk. Because fabs require stable electricity and large amounts of water, diversifying production among allies like Japan, South Korea, and India is seen as a hedge against these hazards. Despite massive investments, rebuilding semiconductor capacity will take years and face challenges. Fabs cost tens of billions of dollars and require highly skilled engineers. There is concern that labor shortages could slow progress. Subsidies may also stoke trade disputes and inefficiencies if funds go to companies with little accountability. Yet the alternative, continued dependence on a single island or hostile nation, seems riskier. Success will hinge on collaboration among governments, companies, and universities to train talent, innovate in chip design and manufacturing, and create resilient supply chains. In the end, the tiny chips that power our devices have become the battleground for economic competitiveness and security in the 21st century, as the United States, China, Europe, and others race to secure their share of the semiconductor market. The outcome will shape the next era of technology and geopolitics. The stakes are high. Whoever leads in semiconductors will have an outsized influence on industries ranging from healthcare to defense. That's why this global race matters, and why it's worth watching as the story unfolds. If you enjoyed this story, hit the like button, subscribe, and join us on the following video and see what you can learn on the next video.